this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I'll never forget that my journey began on the streets of Chicago. They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I'll never forget that my journey began on the streets of Chicago. They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I'll never forget that my journey began on the streets of Chicago. They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I am still fired up and ready to go.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I am still fired up and ready to go.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I am still fired up and ready to go.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
They said our sights were set too high. They said this country was too divided, too disillusioned to ever come together around a common purpose. But on this January night, at this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said we couldn't do. You have done what America can do in this new year, 2008. In lines that stretched around schools and churches, in small towns and in big cities, you came together as Democrats, Republicans, and independents to stand up and say that we are one nation, we are one people, and our time for change has come.
Okay, I'm back with part two. My name is Rufus Johnson, CEO and the founder of The Real Truth. I just have Sean Hawkins' family on. Go out and support. Do the petitions. Go out and support. Get on Facebook. He's set to be executed June the 14th. So I'm gonna go into my second half of my show. First of all, I also like to give a shout out to the staff, Director of Operation, Redeem, everyone, and Lady for making this come possible with me just as well. But I got my friend up in here now, so we're gonna go into some judgmentship, you know, just gonna get into all kind of issues. Any issues y'all wanna talk about, just call in at 513-651-3036, 513-651-3036. Welcome to the program, my brother. How you been?
I'm well, Mr. Johnson.
I feel you. Judge Fanon, Rucker is in the house with me. I was just thinking about the days, you know, I was going back in the days, you know, before you even became a judge.
That's right.
And way, you know, back in them days, just thinking on how I'm gonna come off with this show. I said, well, you know, I'm not gonna put a topic on, I'm just gonna deal with issues, because we have so much in common on different issues, and I have watched you from one point in your career to this point, and
That's right.
just as well as my career, and people saying, you know, because he's a judge. I said, well, you know, I don't look at a person because he's a judge or a person have a business. I want to recognize a person, the work that they put in. And when you can recognize a person in the work that they put in, that's when you know another person. Because I know you get, well, I know Mr. Ruckers, I know Fanon, I know the judge. I was like, well, you know, stop, you know, saying that you know a person until you really know a person.
Until you really know them, that's right.
So that's why he's here with me to support me, The Real Truth Inc. And at the same time, you know he going up for re-election. So I want you to let the people know who you are, how you got started, and all the things that you have accomplished and where you are today.
Okay, well, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate you, Rufus. I appreciate you.
Rufus.
Rufus, all right. I don't know how.
Mr. Johnson.
This is real, so I want to be real about it.
You in that court now. We in that court. I ain't came past your court, bro.
You know, where I am right now in court, I've been on the bench for 4 years. It's been 4 years since April 30th. And I was appointed by Governor Strickland in 2007 But this has been just the last 2 minutes of a marathon of 39 years. I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana, little city outside of Chicago, which you know well.
I know
the city that you heard of.
Right.
And born and raised in a city that really had problems times 10 of the worst of what Cincinnati has to offer. When I was 7 years old, I was the first time that I had some interaction with somebody actually tried to rob me. Actually,
This happened in Gary?
7 years old. 7 years old. And I was 15 years old the first time that I went to a funeral with one of my partners. One of my boys got shot and killed trying to break up a fight at school. And so that was kind of the atmosphere. And it's crazy because I didn't realize how crazy things were growing up until I left. Went someplace else and realized that everybody didn't live like that.
So when you left Gary, where you end up at?
I went to Hampton University. I was very fortunate. Even my high school guidance counselor told me that I shouldn't go to college because I wasn't, my future didn't look bright. That I should just stop after high school and do trade school or something like that. And I disregarded Sister Alfred, fortunately, and was accepted and went to Hampton University, historically black college down there in Southern Virginia. Beautiful, beautiful place. Spent 4 years, got a degree in psychology, and at the end of my sophomore year, I decided that I wanted to go to law school.
Okay.
And so, and there was a group on campus that talked about the Constitution and how it originally didn't apply to folks that look like us, and that we were 3/5 of a human being according to that document.
So what
that
made
was
you want to
originally
get into law? Because of the crimes and different things, that the upbringing in Gary, because that's coming from the Midwest, and me being from Chicago, we right next door.
Well, actually, what really motivated me more than anything to go into the law had to do with the argument that these people were telling me at 19 years old that because the Constitution didn't originally apply to me and apply to folks that look like us, that if the folks in D.C. decided tomorrow that we were to be slaves again, all they had to do was raise their hands. Now, at 19 years old, that got me excited and passionate. I said, oh, man, I want to be a part of the group of people that can stop that, and I want to be part of the group of people that can help people to understand their rights and go to court and argue. I really wanted to help folks. I wanted to help people to understand what their rights were. I wanted to be the person to help define the law. Mm-hmm. And so that really was my motivation. I found out later on that it's not quite as easy as folks raising their hands and saying we're going to be slaves again, but it was that initial seed of trying to stop some things. And like I said, trying to help people understand the rights that they have, that was the primary motivation for me going to law school. And I was very fortunate to get accepted into University of Cincinnati. And so I came here sight unseen. The only other time I had been in Cincinnati was one time when I was about 12. We came to Kings Island. Me and the family drove down here and stayed all day. That was the only other time I had been in Cincinnati.
Still going to Kings Island?
I've been once in about 10 years. I haven't been as frequently since I've actually moved here. Oh. But I stayed here. And Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati College of Law was a different experience. And Cincinnati itself was such a culture shock for me. Having come from Gary and having attended Hampton University, Cincinnati, as we know, is a very conservative place. Mm-hmm. And in 1993, it was really in the height of a lot of tension that was going on between the community and the police and elected officials, and it was very visible and it was very apparent. And that's where when I started in the prosecutor's office. I started my legal career as a prosecutor for the city of Cincinnati. Standing in the courtrooms right up the street where I'm sitting as a judge now, prosecuting cases of individuals regarding DUIs and domestic violence cases and assaults and anything that a person was facing 6 months in jail or less for that happened in the city of Cincinnati.
So when you was back in your prosecution, we just a prosecutor, how was that for you to go against the elements of some of the things that you seen as an upbringing? When you, how was that for you? Was that tough on you?
It was a line walking sentiment, because in the same vein that I grew up under these circumstances where we just got a house broken into, and I went through the same violent circumstances, and I had friends that got locked up and all those things. So I was sensitive and I had an awareness of the system and was really very anti-victim. But at the same time, I also heard, and I'm a student of history. And in fact, I teach a class at UC on legal history and African Americans, but I'm a student of history. And what I had always heard was this screaming from the souls of folks saying that the system was not considered to be a fair place, particularly for certain demographics. If you were poor, if you were certain ethnic groups, if you were certain races, then that system was no place you wanted to be because you couldn't get a fair shake. And historically, there were examples where that was proved to be true. And so I was walking the line between saying, I want to prevent people from being victims. I want to make sure that people were protected. And at the same time, I want to do something to ensure that, number one, we have a fair system, and number two, that people perceive the system to be fair. And so I worked as a lawyer. I worked in my private life and in community activities in order to really be proactive in trying to help to ensure that people were able to see that this system was changing from the perception that people had from 200 years of examples to what we had developed it into by the time I was practicing law in 1996.
So let's go back to the Gary times versus you coming here to Cincinnati, and by this being, because around that time, I think I came here in 88, 87, and I think you still was a prosecutor at that time because you just went into 93 and 94.
Well, I graduated from law school in 96. So I was I was in college in 89 to 93.
Okay, you came out and, so what was the year you actually started as a prosecutor?
96, that's right.
Do you think you was a hard prosecutor or you was fair or what?
Well, I mean,
think you like Joe Dieters or something like that? You know Joe Dieters. Hey, you know what it is.
You know, when it comes to being a hard prosecutor, there was a case that I had on my wall when I was in the prosecutor's office. And it was a case from the Supreme Court from 1973. I can't remember the name of the case, but the quote in the case said, "The job of a prosecutor is not to seek convictions, but to seek justice." And that resonated with me, that really is the role. The role is not to have a chart on your desk and to continually rack up the lines after line based on, how hard your sentences are, how many convictions you got, because every person who's charged with an offense is not guilty of committing the offense.
So by you being a prosecutor, you knowing this, but you seeking justice.
Seeking justice, not seeking convictions.
Okay.
And that caused me at different times to make fair assessments of cases and to make offers where appropriate. It also required me at different times when a victim came in and was really, an affected victim, to make sure that I communicated to the judge all of the horrible things that the person who was accused of committing some type of crime. I was making sure that I was pounding the table.
Okay.
So I mean, a hard prosecutor. I don't know if I was a hard prosecutor. I was a good prosecutor.
Okay, well,
I was a fair prosecutor.
Well, I'm not saying you because I'm not saying it because I know of him, but prosecutors, and I learned things about prosecutor because you already saying you're a student of history. In order to be a strong and a fair prosecutor, you have to know history, and history and cases. So you saying you was a fair prosecutor. I haven't met one prosecutor that ain't been fair, because I always felt like, not me being in the system, see, be careful, Rufus, but I always felt like that prosecutor's job was to convict you. No matter what the deal is, my job is to make sure, their job is to make sure that you wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. It comes off like that.
Sure.
But because their job, and this is not what I was just talking to the Hawkins family, and they go into some similar issues, which I know you can't speak on that because it's a pending case and different things. But I always looked at prosecutors as, no matter what, they want a conviction.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the reason that I had that case hanging on my door was because, some of my colleagues,
right?
Yeah, that was their position. And there was also an unfortunate reality that I saw, that I looked a lot like many of the individuals who were coming through our office by way of cases. And some of the folks that I worked with didn't have, how can I say, the same level of sensitivity to these issues that I did, growing up the way that I did, and having heard the same screams about the system that I did. And so my job as a prosecutor was not just, as I said, to make sure that everything was just and fair and equal, but it was also to be a kind of check on the system, to make sure that the people who I was working with had the same respect for those. See, every person who appears before the court has blood coursing through their veins, has 166 bones in their bodies, has 10 fingers, 10 toes, and has a mind and a spirit. And everyone deserves to be treated in a respectful way. I believe that from my life growing up. I believe that as a prosecutor. When I started doing civil rights work and employment discrimination work and representing public officials in big cases on TV and stuff, I still agree that that was the basic principle. And I feel that now. Every person who appears in front of me is a person appearing in front of me. And they deserve the respect of being a person, even when they've made some mistakes that led them there in the first place.
So I don't know if you could regulate back, but how many, let me say, convictions that you may had under your belt when you listen to cases as a prosecutor?
Well, I didn't keep score.
You didn't keep score.
And you know, and now let me tell you, when I first started, now understand, I was 24 years old.
Okay.
I was,
you was young and you was full of that fire.
That's right. I absolutely was, and I
right.
was excited, and I was passionate, and I'd stay late in the office, and I'd be going through the code and doing my research on every single case I had. I had 30 or 40 cases every single day, 5 days a week, and out of those, I probably had 2 or 3 trials every day, and out of those trials that I had. You know, the win and the loss, and it's funny, we measure win and losses in different ways. As a lawyer, it's dangerous to measure your wins and losses in terms of the outcome, the guilt or the not guilty, the liable or not liable. You shouldn't measure victories in that way, because if I'm victorious and that's how I measure my victories, and I convict somebody who's actually innocent, or somebody gets off when they actually are guilty, then I've measured my victory in the wrong way. I measured my victory by how prepared I was for the case, and whether or not I, in my soul's conscience, believed that justice was achieved in the case. And after I lost a couple of cases early on as a prosecutor, I didn't lose anymore, because I made sure that I was satisfied at the end of the case that justice was served. There were a few cases right before I left the prosecutor's office I just didn't have a good feeling about. And that was really one of the reasons I said, you know what, it's time for me to move on and start to do things a different way to help address these issues in the system. And that's when I did move along.
So then after that, you was elected for judge, right?
Oh, no. After I left the prosecutor's office, there was about 7 years in between there. And when I left the prosecutor's office, I joined a law firm called Manley Burke, Lipton, Fisher, and Cook at the time. Now it's Manley Burke. And I was a civil rights attorney. I also became the assistant law director for Lincoln Heights. Okay,
let's go back to civil rights, because something that's ringed in my mind about civil rights. How do you feel about them issues as a lawyer to represent civil rights? Because when you represent civil rights, you represent civil rights on all humanity. That's not a black or white issue, it's all people.
That's right.
How you feel about that?
I mean, like I said, that was the core principles and reasons why I went to law in the first place. You know, I mean, to have someone come to my office and say, Mr. Rucker, this is what happened to me. You know, I was unlawfully detained, and I was shipped off on a bus in hand shackles and foot shackles, and I wasn't even the person they were looking for. I mean, you know, to hear the personal stories of how someone's dignity was stripped away from them, how someone's rights were taken away, and to be in a position of actually being able to assist in restoring some of that dignity, even if it was financial, or having them to be able to tell their story so that others could avoid the same pitfalls or the same danger that they got in, or to bring the hammer on somebody who was doing wrong so that others would be reluctant to do the same things to others. I mean, that's the core passion of why I went to law school. And so I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed acting as an employment discrimination lawyer and doing civil rights and litigation. I mean, that was exciting. That was a very exciting time for me. And I was very fortunate because I had some great mentors around the city who worked with me on some of my cases.
So who's some of your mentors that worked with you in your career?
Oh man, I've been very fortunate, very blessed to have, when I first got here, Ernest McAdams, who is the city prosecutor, who's going to be, I think, moving along here soon. But he was the city prosecutor at the time, and Ernie taught me how in jury trials to memorize the names of all of the jurors so that you could have a personal relationship with them while you're going through voir dire to help them to personally relate to the cases that you're going to be arguing to them later.
So you be calling out their names, huh?
Calling out the names. Mr. Johnson, number one. That's right, like we friends, like we came in from somewhere. But that familiarity helped them to better relate. And if there was a question of credibility between me and the the attorney on the other side or the witnesses on the other side, they were going to yield that extra credibility to me because they had they felt more of a personal relationship with me. And that was something I learned from Mr. McAdams. Another mentor was Sharon Zealy, who was ultimately the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, first African-American woman in that position, and then who went on to do civil litigation. She was a great mentor. John J. Williams, who worked for the city. I mean, I could go on. Eric Kearney, who is even now one of my political mentors and big brothers and friends. You know, there are so many folks who I really, once I got into the law, said, we know you're not from here. We know you don't know a lot of people, but in this law thing, we got your back. And they really grabbed my hand and pulled me along. Politically, you know, I have a lot of mentors as well. Lisa Reese, a very close friend of mine. Steve Reese, you know, the Reese family has been very huge assistance to me in everything I've done politically from the first day I announced I was running for prosecutor. As you know, I ran for prosecutor in 2004 against Dieters when he was coming back to town from being in the Treasurer's office. Politically, Judge William McLean, the first African-American judge here in Hamilton County. He was appointed to his position in 1975 to the Common Pleas Court. And he has been just an incredible vat of knowledge, of wisdom, of encouragement, of motivation. I mean, like I said, I don't have any countenance or any, I don't want to mislead anybody to believe that I feel like I got here on my own. I am absolutely here in this position right now because of some incredible people who sacrificed a whole lot and then showed me the way that I could also be successful and helped me to get there.
So now you went to, we covered the prosecution, we covered civil rights, then you moved to where?
After I left Manley Burke, I was there for about 3 years, and then I went to a firm, a medium-sized firm called Santon and Hughes, where I assumed the role as the law director for Lincoln Heights. I wasn't an assistant anymore. That was my village. And so any legal issues that went on in the village, from drafting, I drafted all the laws that they had during those times. I represented the city manager and the city council members when anything was going on, employment matters. I did everything legal for the village. I also started representing some small, medium-sized companies on the other side of these discrimination cases and employment cases, drafting employment policy manuals and going to court and helping them to defend against some of the claims that were being made against them for all kind of things. I was still doing my civil rights work, and it was actually during my time at Santon and Hughes until 2007 that I had some of my bigger cases that I was able to sit on some national TV shows and do some radio stuff and actually talk about some of these big cases. That was during that time, and it was in 2007 then when I got the call from the governor. But 3 years before that is when I ran for prosecutor, and that was my first step into the political arena, and it was an incredible run.
Wow, and that was 2004.
Yep, right in Rucker.
I'm going back because I know through my career and watching your career, we were always bumped.
That's right. That's right.
You know, year in or 2 years out, we were always bumping. I think the last time I talked to you, I was like, you know, I'm gonna get you on the show.
That's right. We were over in Northern Kentucky at one of the lock-ins for one of the groups.
We was over where?
At Northern Kentucky University at the lock-in for the I believe it was the Y.
NKU. What we did, you talking about the panel?
We did a panel, but they had a lock-in for young folks.
Right. I forgot.
See, and you know what? And you said we crossed paths, but see, that's the thing about it. Since I've been in Cincinnati, I've had a legal track and I've also had a community track.
Right.
And both of them have paralleled and have crossed many times, because I do for others, and I say this, and I'll say this a million times. I do for others because so many others did for me. Not just when I got to Cincinnati, but I mean all my life. Other people have reached a hand back. And pulled me along. And so I have a responsibility, and I've always felt a responsibility when I was 12, 13 years old, to be active and to help others who don't have or who didn't have the same opportunities I had, to expose them to those opportunities. And so being active in the community on all kind of boards, on panels, you know, when there were community issues going on, like with Farron Crosby in 1994, 1995, and when the disturbances hit in 2001, and being a part of the conversation for the solutions have always been there. Always been there. It hasn't been. It's not a political reason to sit there, and that's where we've crossed paths. Because being active and saying, I care about this place. I care about the people who are here. People do matter, and if you truly believe that, then it answers the question. Well, why is Judge Rucker speaking at this graduation, or why is Judge Rucker speaking to these kids, or why is he mentoring these folks, and he's not running this year? Well, that's because it's not about politics.
So you learn how to separate.
Oh, well, there's no separation.
Okay.
There's no separation.
Everything is all in one.
It is, if you're doing it for true reasons. Now,
right, okay.
what I'm always interested about, and like I said, I do a lot of speaking. I teach at the university. I do poetry. I go out and do spoken word and everything out at the at some community spots. And what I try to tell people is, if you only see people who are running for office the year that they're running for office, and they make all these promises to you, and then if they lose, and then they disappear for the next 2 years or 4 years, and then they come back 4 years later and say, this is all the things I'm going to do. If they promised they were going to do them, if they got elected, and then they lost, and they didn't do those things, what gives you the reason to believe that now they were going to do those things, only because they get an elected title?
And I agree with you on that. My name is Rufus Johnson. You can call in my guest, Judge Rucker. He's in the house with me. I told you I'm going to have the best of the best coming. Call in at 513-651-3036 if you'd like to ask any questions or any issues that he can provide us on the air. And as I'm sitting up and thinking about, I'm going back 15 years, probably more, being in, knowing you and knowing of you and crossing these paths. And I wanted to say the best for last, but you had just touched on it. The upset, the uprising at that time, what was your take? Because we know they just did a thing, I guess it was in April.
Yep, 10-year anniversary.
Right, for the incident that happened at Timothy Thomas. And, I wanted to get your take from them times when we was out there being activists to this point on where you are being as an activist, and that's the first question, and a judge.
Well,
because I know you played a lot involvement in that.
Yeah. That student of history thing, all of the great monuments, and there's been a few castles and a few impenetrable buildings that have been built up over thousands of years. And for those that have tried to penetrate those buildings, they found a whole lot of difficulty trying to break down the walls, just throwing sticks and stones and arrows from outside. What's been successful in breaking down those barriers or in changing cultures and structures is to really fight on two fronts, outside and inside. And it's the fight on the inside that those who are on the inside have to have some level of direction and purpose in changing the structure. Working with the folks on the outside who are also saying we're being affected by these things. Those things working together is what causes change to systems like the justice system and like the governmental structures and really people's minds and people's perceptions about things. And so I look at myself as someone who has worked on the outside and now has the ability on the inside to also work to help change and expose and to help correct really some things that have not been necessarily fair and just in a system that is supposed to be fair and just. So I'd say I continue just on a different arena. That's why I continue to teach. That's why I continue to speak. That's why I write and I make myself available
at all times. That's why you're here with me today. I appreciate you. And then also I was just sitting up here thinking about first I want to give out a shout to the Turner's family, my Cincinnati godfather, Dr. Belly Turner, recently just passed a couple of weeks ago. And, as we was talking on the phone, I was just thinking about, when I met Turner, when I taught one of his classes over at UC. And through that journey, it allows me, when he recommended, me to be, in the Masonic order, Yeah, I'm one of them too, so I just didn't want y'all to just to keep forgetting, my past and history on the respect of Dr. Turner. And it just crossed my mind. So, being a brother, on that order, how's everything's going and how the brothers doing with the lodges in the Masonic order? for those that's wise in the secret order, you know, we can't be talking about a whole lot of things, so I'm just going to have him to touch on a little bit of that because I know that's a passion of yours just as well.
That definitely is. I was fortunate enough to become associated with the Masonic Order several years ago, and I appreciate the lighted path that I'm able to walk on and to help others see through the Masonic Order. You know, it's moving, and I look at old pictures from the 30s and
Right.
the 20s and folks so proud and the numbers of people who were active in the orders all across the country, and how those numbers have really dropped off since the 70s and the 80s. And you know, undergraduate fraternities are the same way. Church attendance has fallen off the same way. And these were really pillars in our communities that we were able to embrace and that provided us some reciprocal love. And when and how we shifted direction and stopped having the numbers that we have and people being excited as they are, I'm not sure, but I'm trying to bring it back. And I just served 2 years as the head of my lodge, and I'm moving on to some other things in the order in the next couple of weeks, and so I stay excited. I stay excited.
And then, you know, when we ain't on the air, we'll talk about them things.
Right, we can't tell it all, man. Can't tell it all.
No, that's only for those that's wise in the secret order. So
right.
we're going to keep that lighting up. So, but then I want to go back and I knew it was a couple of people hit me up on Facebook that was tagging someone. I think it was, this question is for you, Leah. I think it was Leah. She asked a question and about making marijuana legal.
Oh yeah. She posted that question on my wall. Yeah, I saw that.
Like, okay. But, you know, my take on it, you know, then I let the judge speak on it. But I agree with you, you know what I mean? Because she basically was basically saying it was not a drug, it's a healing herb, right? So I'm like, you know, but I think also she asked you was some kind of stacks on it for the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And I know that's against some rules in the state, because I think I had Judge Nadine Allen on here, and she was speaking about the laws if you get caught with marijuana or whatever. But hold that thought. Caller, we have a caller on the air. Caller, you now on the air.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing today, gentlemen?
Wonderful. How are you?
Okay. My name is Timothy, and is that me making that noise?
I'm not sure.
That's
something in the studio. Can you talk up a little bit, sir?
I can talk a little bit. What I wanted to ask you was, when I was raised in 1974. You know what raised means?
Familiar with that?
Yeah, I was raised in 74. I was to the third degree. And I was in the church and everything, and then I just lost contact by going out in the streets. And when I see brothers now, I want to get reinstated. But they don't seem to want to help you get reinstated, or they act real secretive and moody. And I give them a handshake, and I do the special signs that I was taught. And still, they say, okay, yeah, bro, and they walk on, or they'll say, you're talking about it, they won't tell me. I was a test home.
And were you raised here in Cincinnati?
Yeah, right there on Bank Street, down in North Carolina, I was raised at the Prince Homemaker down there on Bank in Coleraine.
On Coleraine. I'm trying to think of what lodge is over there on Coleraine.
The Prince Homemaker Lodge, I forget the number, my goodness. You know how you get forgiveness. But anyway, how do I get reinstated? What do I do?
Well, I don't want to give too much out on air here, but what you can do, once you are a member of a particular lodge, you have to go back to that lodge in order to be reinstated.
I don't think that lodge is there anymore.
Then, if that's the case, you can contact the deputy of the district or the head of any lodge, worshipful master of any lodge, who can then have a petition of reinstatement put in for you, and the brothers can go out and follow the procedures in order to get you back in. That shouldn't be a problem. And if you're having problems going to a particular brother, and you know, I mean, there's so many brothers who are here and there, and connected and not connected.
Right.
That really you have to find the leadership of a lodge or the leadership of the district to ensure that the proper procedures are actually followed quickly.
Okay, so I just go and find a brother who's
find out who the head of his lodge is and contact that individual directly.
Okay, I'm gonna thank you, gentlemen.
Hey, no problem. Great talking to you.
Okay, we got that. Anyone else need to call in to ask Judge Ruckus anything questions? Call in at 513-651-3036. We basically was on the marijuana.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna remember.
I have to go back. Oh, well, you know, me myself, I got to stay clean these days. But anyway, but we're gonna go back, and I guess her statement was there some kind of law here in the state of Ohio that can make it legal? And I don't know that part of the law, but I know you can basically represent that.
Sure. And of course, my disclaimer is that, the possession of marijuana in the state of Ohio is a misdemeanor charge. If it's less than 200 grams, it's a minor misdemeanor. And the higher the amounts that you have, the more you're getting closer to trafficking and a felony charge of trafficking. So that's my disclaimer. Now, there's no secret that over the past really 25 years, there has been a steady decriminalization of marijuana possession. And I think D.C. recently passed a medicinal use law within the past year and a half. And I think there's something like 36 states currently have laws on the books or laws pending to legalize some aspect of marijuana use, Ohio being one of them. There is currently a bill, last time I checked, there is a bill pending that would legalize the medical use of marijuana, the medical possession of marijuana, which means the doctors could then prescribe it, and it would not be illegal to possess it as long as you had some legal credentials authorizing you to do that, such as California has. Mm-hmm. And in fact, California had.
I just really speak on that, California.
Yeah, they put on there was a law that they were trying to pass at the last election to legalize marijuana overall. And of course, the federal government was somewhat against that. But there has been a move that leads one to the reasonable conclusion of the possibility of marijuana being legal in this country within the next 5 to 10 years. I could see that as a possibility.
Okay, hold that thought. We have another call on the air. Caller, you are now on the air.
Good evening.
Hey, how you doing, brother? This who? Oh, okay. What's happening, black man?
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks,
Appreciate
brother.
that. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to get like my CCWs, so I can breathe out here, but I had a few previous trying to get anything to run around when I go down to the court trying to get that worked out. I'm trying to see what steps can I do to follow that, or any restrictions, or if I'm getting that, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. The CCW permit, what you're asking about, of course, a few years ago, the law was passed that said that a person in Ohio, we are allowed to carry weapons as long as, or carry guns specifically, as long as we have a carry and conceal permit law. As we have a carry and conceal permit. In order to get your permit, there are certain requirements that the state legislature passed. They said you have to go through a certain class with a certain number of hours of training, and there were certain convictions that if you have on your record, that you are excluded from being able to carry a concealed weapon. The law is really positioned in two ways. One is by the state legislature, where they sit down and say, this is the law, these are the requirements, and this is what you have to follow. And then the court carves out some parts of the law. And we say, this is what the legislature said we're supposed to do, or just by history, we can recognize this as a law. Well, the state legislature said these are the things that are required or which are allowable in order for a person to get a permit. There's no discretion in that. Other than whatever exceptions that may exist, if there are certain convictions on the record, if you're not able to get those convictions expunged, or if they are convictions that exclude a person from being able to carry, until the legislature makes a change in the law, you're prohibited from being able to get that permit. And of course, if you carry a weapon without having a permit, then that's going to could potentially result in a criminal charge. I was actually talking about this with someone the other day. The law that the governor is looking to sign, I think, seeks to allow guns in liquor establishments, and also removes some of the crimes that have prohibited people from carrying guns. I think one of those crimes they're prohibiting is marijuana possession, another issue of decriminalization. And so it shaves off over time. It just depends on who yells to the legislature about what should be in there and what shouldn't. But to the brother that called, what I would say is take a look at that statute, and if any of the convictions that you have on your record are ones that prohibit you from being able to get a permit, see if you can get that expunged or somehow, washed off the record. If not, then the only option that you have is to move to another state that doesn't have those prohibitions, or get some of your state legislatures to try to change the law to expand the number of offenses that don't exclude somebody from being able to carry.
So is that like if a person have assault? Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's one of assault, or to the degree of what the felony may be, can not allow a person to be accepted in carrying a concealed weapon.
To be very honest, I don't know the statute.
Okay.
I would guess with a reasonable degree of certainty that a felony, particularly a crime of violence, would probably be those charges that would prohibit somebody from being able to carry. I do recall a couple years ago, maybe it wasn't even a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, that several police officers were stricken of their police duties because it was discovered that they had minor misdemeanor drug marijuana charges on their record from before they became police officers. And because the law prohibits individuals with criminal records, with marijuana charges on their record from carrying guns, they weren't able for some period of time to carry their weapons and to act as police officers. And so they were going to court trying to get these records expunged. And I believe that that's part of the reason that is one of the charges that has been identified as one of the no longer excluding offenses, because it had the effect of taking the police powers away from quite a few people who made some errors, 20 or 30 years ago.
Okay, I just want to double check. I think we have a call on the air. We have a caller on the air. Caller, you are on the air. There's a caller on the air. Caller on the air. Okay, if that's a caller, you can call back in at 513-651-3036. So do you know anything about how a person can go about getting things off their record expunged?
Sure. And in fact, after the disturbances, I was part of Cincinnati Can and was one of the very active members on the Police and Justice Committee, where we formed, one of the efforts that we formed was an expungement initiative, and we made sure that the instructions were made very public, and we actually got a bunch of lawyers to help people get things off of their record. And the law is that a misdemeanor may be expunged within 1 year after final resolution of the case if it's not one that's excluded, and a felony can be taken off the record if it's 3 years after final resolution. So what that means is someone comes in front of me with a charge like an obstruction of official business, which is a misdemeanor, and I give them a fine, within 1 year after they pay their fine, they're eligible to ask the court to have it expunged. And it's a one-time deal on convictions. It's unlimited for dismissals or not guilties. So if someone comes to court on a domestic violence charge, they plead not guilty, they go to trial, they're found not guilty, that record is immediately expungible, and there are no limits on the number of expungements or sealing of the record a person can have on cases that are dismissed or whether they're found not guilty. But it's just a matter of filing a form with the clerk's office.
Is that a fee that comes along with that? Because I know the last time I had Judge Nadine Allen on, when we was talking, I think it was free. I don't know if
it's free if it's a dismissal or a not guilty. It's a $50 fee if it's a conviction. I believe it's $50.
Okay, the Director of Operations just let me know we have another call on the air. Caller, you are on the air. Are we waiting for the caller? Caller, you on the air?
Yes, I am.
Caller, you are on the air.
Okay, this is, hello?
Caller, you on the air?
Can you hear me?
Okay, must call back in at 513-651-3036. We can't get it down here, but I know somebody up in the studio control will get the message and give it to us. And
Can I say, today is a historic day in the law and really in American history. I talked about it a little bit on my Facebook page today, that 57 years ago today, just 57 years ago, the United States Supreme Court declared segregation unconstitutional in Brown versus Board of Education. Even for folks who've never been to law school, even for folks that don't know or particularly like studying the law, almost everybody knows about Brown versus Board of Education, because it was really the turning point in this country that the law recognized that there was some problem with the way that the laws were being meted out and how we as a society, black and white, interacted with each other. And it's an interesting case study. I talk about it quite extensively in my class about how we reached the point of the argument in Brown versus Board of Education. But this is a historic day today.
okay, we're going to come back to this historic day. We have a caller on the air now. Caller, you are on the air. Caller, you on the air?
Yes, sir. Can you
They
hear
might
me?
just be shy.
You caller, you are on the air.
Okay, we on the air. Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear something.
I can hear some, but I can't really hear you.
Okay, I can hear you.
Caller, you on the air, or you can just call back and let someone know in the control room what is your question. We will give you an answer. Caller, you on the air?
Hold on, I'm gonna answer it for her because it's technically difficulty. So, but hold on. She's a nurse, and what happened was a couple of years ago, this year ago, something happened that they took her license from her.
Driver's license or nursing license?
Her job. They actually took her job from her. She's a nurse, and they took her job from her.
Okay.
Because it was a charge that she had a long time ago, and she went to the what was it? She tried for the clemency with the. She got it, but she got the hearing, and she's waiting for the governor to listen to her case, but they're not listening to it, and she don't have a job, and she wanted to know how she can be able to speed up the process or get it done.
Okay. That is not something that I necessarily have a lot of experience with. I do know when it comes to government action and trying to get the court or the governor or the legislature to do something quickly, that's a losing battle, and that's an unfortunate commentary on how we run our system procedurally. And it's unfortunate, but what her story is one that I've heard frequently from a couple of students in my class. Before I got on the bench, people will be on jobs for 5, 10, 15 years, and then one day their supervisor will come in and say, we found something on your record from 20 or 30 years ago, and so now we have to let you go. She needs to contact an attorney. She can contact someone through the Cincinnati Bar Association, ask to get references for an employment lawyer, or she can look up an employment lawyer in the book. I can't refer anyone in particular, but that's her problem is not uncommon. The question about how to speed up the process, if she finds out the answer to that, or if anyone knows that, I'd like to know so that I can put it out on Sky pages so that everybody will know.
Okay. Anyone have any more questions? We have a little difficulty with our phones, but you can still call in at 513-651-3036. So we're going to finish out, and we're going to go up and pick up where we left off at. Now we moving into you being the judge.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that judgment, that's power. But my thing is, like, when you actually got into, because this is your, how many terms now?
I'm in my,
second or third
this second term. I mean,
Second term?
my first term really was from April of 2007 until January of 2007.
And you deal with cases, your position as a judge and the cases you deal with are?
Misdemeanors that occur within Hamilton County. So out of all of the villages, townships, municipalities, cities in Hamilton County, they have the potential for coming to my courtroom. I am one of 14 judges that hears cases like I do, and they are cases that a person is facing 6 months in jail or less. So it's domestic violence, it's assaults, it's DUIs, it's traffic cases, it's resisting arrest, it's anything that a person is facing 6 months in jail or less.
Okay. Y'all heard that. Judge Ruckers is in the house with me, Real Truth Inc., Rufus Johnson, your host. I'd like to also give a shout out to the staff, Director of Operation Redeem, lady, producer, assistants holding it down, making these things happen. I always like to do that, you know what I mean, because without them, you know, as a unit, you know, you can't move on, you know. So therefore, what else I wanted to touch on? Where you are now, your re-election, you know, because that's coming up, and I know you getting prepared for that. And, you know, now hold that question. Let me go back to this question. Now, you know, I wanted to start like a producer show for like a judge. You know how they come on TV like with them judges, and you got the swift justice.
Oh yeah.
You got that, but I wanted to do something similar to that.
Okay.
And maybe we could talk about this at a later date.
Okay.
For the city of Cincinnati Falls community.
Yeah.
What I mean by that, I know certain things you're allowed to talk about and not to talk about, but just to have some series on law and education for the community.
Yeah.
You know, certain minor things, you know what I mean, to actually put that piece together. I don't know, I know William Bell, he got his show come on, William Bell, Accident Attorney, I think that's the name of it, but I wanted to take it on another level, so that's something I want you to think about. To make
the cameras are welcome in my courtroom any given day. You know, the courtroom is public. The courtroom is owned by the people. Okay. And so I do not bar my doors. And anytime the public wants to come in, and like I said, if that's camera, this is you talking about real. Right. That's as real as it gets. And so come on in. Okay,
y'all heard that. Real Truth Inc. will be in the courthouse. I'm bringing the reality education out to lifestyle. I will be in the courthouse with Judge Rucker. So I want to go and let you finish out about where you are as a judge and your re-election and we got about five minutes, and we're gonna close it out and take it on home. Okay. Like I said, I appreciate one love, brother, all the time. Man. You know, you're my man, and it's an honor to get this where we need to be because everything has its timing. But let me let you talk about the re-election and what you need for me and everybody else to support you.
Well, you know what, I am up for re-election this year. Judicial terms are every 6 years, and when I was appointed, I took over for the remaining term that Judge Mallory had. Judge William Mallory was a municipal court judge. He was elevated to the Common Pleas Court. He was elected to Common Pleas. And so his moving up created a vacancy. So I was appointed to fulfill his vacancy. I then had to run in 2007 to keep it until 2011. So now I'm running for a full 6-year term. And the full 6-year term, as I said, I'm running in a particular district, but I enjoy running for office. I will say, everybody asks me who's my opponent. My opponent, I have several opponents. My opponents are apathy, indecision. My opponents are lack of involvement. My opponents are, I don't want to get up on November 9th because it's cold outside and go to the polls. My opponents are, I got a felony and I can't vote anymore, which is not true. Right. Those are my opponents. I am looking for folks to volunteer on my campaign, to wear my T-shirts, and I have the symbols that are cross gavels. If you ever see the symbols of the cross gavels, that's representative of Judge Fanon Rucker: fairness, equality, justice, balance, harmony. The 7 principles that something called MOT represents, and if we had more time, I'd explain to you what that was about. Okay. But the court system is based upon an Egyptian figure called Ma'at, and Ma'at stood for the 7 principles of harmony and balance and equality and justice and those things, and actually is what we see today as Lady Justice. So when you see those cross gavels, it represents, and it should give people confidence that there are people out here who are working to ensure that we do have a just system. And I'm one of those people who works hard to do that, because I believe that we as a people, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, I do believe that we all have responsibility to make sure that everyone is treated fairly, and that people, like I said, are confident in the system that we all are part of. And so that's what I'm doing for my re-election. We'll be out about at the festivals. I'll be doing a lot of speaking. Folks can come to my website, keepjudgerucker.com. and they can read my bio and my CV and see some pictures from different events. They can go to my Facebook page and they can interact and write on my wall. And we remove all inappropriate comments. I don't get many of those. The judge don't get many of those. But I'm excited. I do love to run for office.
And I appreciate you through all the years. Like I say, been in your company, knowing you in the movement, the whole thing for over 15 years. So everything is a timing, and whatever I could do on my end to support you, we got there too. So off the air, we'll talk about a strategic plan.
Sure.
To put everything.
Surely, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I forget every once in a while.
You got to get loose with me, and I know you got to go do another talk show with Face Talk or someone.
That's
and
right.
I think when I read it, I think they wanted you, me, us to come or whatever that. I don't know who sent it. Somebody about Face Talk, whatever.
Okay.
But if y'all want me to be on Face Talk, talk to the judge. He'll give me the okay. He'll call me, let me know what it is. But on that note, I think I have about 3 to 4 minutes left. I just wanted to thank everybody like the Sean Hawkins families for coming in on the first hour. Go out, sign your petitions. Trust me, he's due to be executed on the 14th of June. They coming out support. They coming out and giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of an Afro-American family. You, Fanon, Rucker, in the house, not only just a friend, a judge, but a colleague, a comrade, because we get out here and go to work. And, I got number one love for you, but, I don't see you losing nowhere, because that's his opponent, no losing here. So, it's just like I say, an honor, man, just to have you here and give me the time, to make it real. And like I said, I will be in your courtroom, bro.
Okay.
If you have any last words, you want anyone to know how to contact you, to get to you. Matter of fact, the election is what, November?
November 9th.
November the 9th. So, this summer and coming to the fall, he's going to be out there on the grind. So go out there, make things happen. And I'm going to let him say his last words, and I'm going to close this show out.
As I said, I do for others because others did for me. If you want to be a part of something dynamic and exciting, come on to www.judgerucker.com or hit me up on Facebook. That's my outlet. And thank you, Brother Rufus, for having me.
Oh, one love. Like I always say, I see you at the top while I be among the stars. Thanks to the director, Redeem, and Lady for actually making this show possible. We out of here. Take me home, Redeem.
They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I'll never forget that my journey began on the streets of Chicago. They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I'll never forget that my journey began on the streets of Chicago. They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I'll never forget that my journey began on the streets of Chicago. They said this day would never come.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I am still fired up and ready to go.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I am still fired up and ready to go.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
I am still fired up and ready to go.
Beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
They said our sights were set too high. They said this country was too divided, too disillusioned to ever come together around a common purpose. But on this January night, at this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said we couldn't do.